Welcome to the FPL USA Press Play podcast. We are the official audio home of the hashtag FPL USA community. We like to think we are the best FPL, which is the Fantasy Premier League focused podcast dedicated to the US audience, but we also have amazing listeners abroad. Speaking of abroad, I'm joined by the sexiest voice on the podcast. That is one Dan, aka at FPL_Blackwolf. Pup Daddy, how you doing, baby?
I'm doing very good. I'm curious at what point my accent no longer becomes sexy to you.
Oh, never. You always have that appeal of the dulcet tones. I am the voice that's made for the silent films. You are the one that is has a voice for radio.
There we go. But yeah, it's been kind of a shitty weekend, to be honest, with fantasy and with my real life support. And I kind of want to get that out of the way straight away, Bucks. Mr. Chelsea fan, go ahead and gloat. Get it done.
It's okay. I'm wearing a black Chelsea jersey from the founding of the championship credo at Chelsea. Really, this is my Frank Lampard jersey. I believe it's 2005, 2006 vintage. And I'm wearing it because it is an homage to you, Black Wolf, because I'll be expecting maybe that third Chelsea kit that's also black. You can get me the Netto one. Just send it over to New York. It shouldn't be too expensive.
You're dead to me right now, really.
It's all right. I'm loving it right now. It's a good time to be a Chelsea fan. The media has gone awfully silent. I don't know if you have been checking the podcasts or the article push out, but it's way down considering Chelsea and the $1 billion bottlers finally look like they might be putting things together. 1 + 1 = 6 when it comes to the Chelsea goal scorers.
It does. It looks like they're finally the team that you've been wanting them to be for many years now. But we'll see what happens when they get their next loss.
Ooh, yeah. So the noise will come right back.
Exactly.
All right, let's go to some highlights. First and foremost, we run an amazing free-to-enter podcast mini league. And right now, the rank in that mini league is absurd. I mean, the competition is fierce. And we had 17 different managers total a triple-digit tally in game week 2, which is just bonkers. The code to enter is T88F87. The overall winner is going to get a free kit of your choosing from this season. The 24-25 kits will be sent to you wherever you are in the world. This is a global free-to-enter league, and we are also going to do regular shout-outs to the top performers in that league. So, Dan, let's glow up the highest scoring manager in the Press Play Premiership. This name is a doozy, and I'm terrible with pronunciation, so I'm passing the buck to you, baby.
I just knew when I saw the leader of the mini league that you would ask me to say his name, so I'm going to try here. So the current leader is team name Running River, also known as Bayezan Bektayev. I think I did pretty good there. He got 118 points with triple captain Haaland, and he also had Son for the 16 points, Luis Diaz for the 14 points, Morgan Gibbs White for his 10 points. So he got points all around the board, 118 points total. Very well done to him.
Bravo. He's running rickshaw right now, the way that his team is performing. He's blazing up the leaderboard. He's up at 25K overall after this performance. I think it was like a 3 million spot jump when you get 118 points. You're having an awfully good game week. That goes without saying.
And I think that's a good transition into the host scores. And I think I'll go first today because I'm once again bottom of the totem pole. I'm having a pretty poor start to the season, but I'm not worried yet.
You're leaning into your beta nature as just an overall bottom.
That's right. I'm currently ranked 3.4 million in the world, but I'm not worried about that at game week 2. As you just said, that guy jumped from 3 million to 25K in one game week, so I'm really not worried right now.
Plenty of time.
We were toying with the triple captaincy of Haaland. You were ballsy enough to do it. I was not. I figured I would hold out for a double game week. I'm regretting that now because I would have been on 90 points, but instead I finish on 73. I got a clean sheet from Gabriel and Pedro Porro. I got an assist from Jedi Robinson. Saka got an assist. Jota got an assist. You know, just average points all around apart from the Haaland captaincy for 34. The real disappointment for me this week was I took out Kwanzaa for Rico Lewis because I had a real strong feeling about him. And he had, I mean, we'll talk about this game later, but he had something like 11 touches in the box. He had a shot that rattled off the crossbar. It was something like almost 1.0 XG, that shot, and he missed it. So I was on for a huge hauler there. But of course, they concede a stupid goal against Ipswich, and he comes away with 2 points. So yeah, average game week for me.
FPL pain so far to start the season for you.
Pain.
Brian topped you just by a handful. He was on 77 points. He's missing in action, so like I am dead to you. Right now, he's dead to us. I think he has like 4 different NFL fantasy football drafts that he is doing tonight. So good luck to you there, Brian. We miss you, and we hope to have you on the pod for next week. As you said, I'll take my flowers here. Triple captain, big success. Haaland comes good with 17 points, 3 shots, 3 goals. That's how you do it for elite level strikers. And I land on 94 points. So we're all on green arrows, but I end up with the most substantial of the green arrows. So I'm happy about that. And I think right now, the big takeaway is we're still so early in the season. It's only been 2 game weeks, but game week 3 is going to be extremely pivotal because we will know the final state of affairs for all 20 Premier League clubs because the transfer deadline closes, I'm going to go Eastern time, 6 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday night. So if you can have discipline to hold your transfers, if you've been fortunate to be able to roll a transfer, so now you have 2 going into game week 3, wait to make transfers, wait for those midweek cup matches, and wait for the transfer deadline to close. We'll have clarity on who's nailed, who's leaving, a lot yet to be determined in the FPL season.
I would like to agree with you, Bucks. However, that would make me a hypocrite because I have already made my transfer this week.
Oh, baby.
I know.
What you're saying is, believe it.
I know, I don't know what I'm doing. What you're saying is great advice, and I fully agree with it, but I haven't listened to it myself, as per usual. So,
Dan, I think you are the pragmatic host, and that now makes 2 for 2 early transfer moves so far this season, right?
Yes. I mean, I'm one of the people that believes that team value this early in the season is very, very important. Because especially if you're planning on playing a wildcard around 4 to 7 or whatever you choose to play it, team value is going to be very, very important. Even 0.1 difference is going to be huge. I've already seen players that I've wanted and I can't get, like Matoma, for example, because he's gone up 0.1 million. So every single 0.1 million you lose in value is going to affect your wildcard. So I'm trying to catch the price rises and price falls, knowing that I do have a decent bench as backup if something completely backfires. So I did make an early transfer yesterday.
I love this for you. You're evolving with the times, so to speak. And as the most rogue and wild card manager on the podcast, I'm glad you're coming over to the dark side a little bit. But I do really agree with what you're saying. I think beginning of the season, team value is paramount. Late in the season, information and rolling the transfers becomes much more important. So we mentioned it on the last pod, 0.1 million off your team value is essentially 0.5 million. It totally rules you out on getting players of a certain price bracket.
Yeah. What I will say, though, is the players that I'm bringing in, I'm looking at, would I pick this guy on a wildcard if I was to play a wildcard in the next 2 game weeks? And if the answer is yes, then I don't mind making the transfer now. If it's someone that I would get rid of on a wildcard, I think it's better to roll the transfer. So there is a caveat to that statement.
Wow, interesting. All right, I think let's dive a little deeper and rewind the action of game week 2. And let's really focus on the big hauls because I think we could spend almost an hour just recapping the players who had double-digit scores. Let's start with the podcast derby. I will make this quick and as pain-free as possible for you, Dan. There were 4 goals in each half. Chelsea had 2 and Wolves had 2 in the first. And whatever Powerade, whatever peanut butter and jelly sandwiches the Chelsea locker room were eating, it worked because they came out and smashed 4 goals unanswered in the second half, highlighted by Noni Madueke. He had 20 FPL points, 3 goals, and 3 bonus points. He had a 16-minute hat trick all in that second half. Palmer, he had a goal and 3 assists. He had a yellow card, which was a smart team play, but that dropped him down to only 2 bonus points, so he lands on 17 points. Oh, real commiserations to you FPL managers who only got 17 as opposed to 18 or 19 points.
They just can't catch a break.
Can't win here. And then there's Nico Jackson. I am a big fan of his. I would not be utterly fussed if we do not bring in a player like Osimhen before the end of the window. I think he is really showing signs of growth, and he's always in the right positions, even if it just means that he's a little too eager and going 1 or 2 steps off sides. So I really think there is a player there. He gets a goal and assist for 10 points. The only guy who really didn't feature or make an impact was Nkunku, who gets benched, comes off the bench for a cameo. He gets 1 point. This is very similar to Havertz when they had 6 goals, Arsenal did, and he ends up with 1 point. This is the same kind of brutal noodle situation for FPL.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question, Bucks, and I think this is a good time to do it. I've seen a lot of people debating moving from Nkunku straight to Madueke. I personally feel like Cole Palmer's the only real safe choice in that Chelsea attack right now. I think even Madueke, we saw game week 1, he was benched. I think because of his hat trick, he's probably likely to keep his place. But at any point, he could get benched, and Nkunku could start, and Nkunku could get a hat trick. So I'm not sure I like that sideways move, but maybe as a Chelsea fan, you feel differently.
Oh, there's too many chefs right now for all the potential attacking cooks in the Chelsea kitchen. So I think, like you said, Palmer is the only one who is truly nailed, and we will know more after game week 3 because Chelsea play Servette on Thursday, so there will be a cup match. Should be pretty much all the backups because they're already up 2-0. And so I expect Noni will be rested in that game. And if he's rested going into game week 3, I think that's a clear indicator. If he stays and is rested, he will be an easy sideways move for Nkunku managers. The problem is you probably will be priced out by that point with the price changes. So the problem is really Neto could play on the left. João Felix could play on the left. Jackson can play on the left, but also Neto can play on the right. Palmer can play on the right. So I really like what Chelsea's doing. I know the media is completely slagging the project, but we are being very opportunistic and we're just going after guys who might be $80 to $100 million players that are currently at 20, 30, and 40 million. So Sancho is a big name in the news. If we move Sterling for Sancho, that will be brilliant business by Chelsea. I will be a big fan of that. Even if Sancho doesn't really feature, I think this move still makes sense. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I think it's exciting times to be a Chelsea fan. I wasn't a fan at first of Maresca, but after seeing the highlights of Maresca ball, as they're calling it, I think he's doing really well building play from the back. I know he's kind of brutal with his words sometimes, but maybe that's what the Chelsea players need because they've been, shitting all over every manager they have had for the past 5 years. So maybe they need someone who's a little bit more brutal. So yeah, they have a great fixture run coming up too, so I like their assets, just knowing who to jump on. Even Madueke, he played really well. However, he's not going to get 20 points every single week. Wolves just capitulated in that second half. We've moved to a back 4, which is not really working, especially with Ryan Aït-Nouri at left back. He's not a left back. He's a left wing back or a left winger. And he let Madueke score the exact same goal 3 times. Any other team or any other quality left back would not let that happen. So, yes, Madueke played really well. I think he's a great asset, but he's not going to face Ryan Aït-Nouri at left back every week.
Yeah, he turned him into retiring Aït-Nouri as opposed to Ronaldo or Rivaldo that he's been in the past. One quick thing on Noni. He had some IG comments that came out before the game. I'm not sure if you saw that, Dan.
Oh yeah, because I made the mistake of posting about it, and I said, I really hope we beat Chelsea this weekend now. And then he went and scored a hat-trick.
You poked the bear. Yeah. I have to say, the karma gods came through on Noni's behalf there. He was like, Wolverhampton, this place is truly shit.
the
It's
amount
disgusting here. Nothing's good. And then he
amount
backed
of
it up on the
abuse
pitch.
the amount of abuse I've had in my DMs and on Twitter is ridiculous. So
Yeah. Though
whatever.
on the flip side, you're probably the best thing that's come out of Wolverhampton. So at least take
Oh,
comfort in that, Dano.
I love it. Thank you.
Next
Let's
up,
move
let's
on.
go.
Let's move on.
Yeah, I'm taking the knife out right now. All right, I'm putting some gauze in. Next up, City dominate against Ipswich at home as predicted, but contrary to our beliefs, Ipswich, they had a moment of greatness and they jumped out to a 1-0 lead to slag FPL managers who were piling in on the Rico Lewis bandwagon to only wipe that clean sheet within like the first couple minutes. That was brutal.
Infuriating. I mean, was it a moment of greatness or was it once again Edison showing that he's just not the quality keeper that he thinks he is? What an awful goal to
a
let
little
in.
bit of both. But you know
Probably.
what? It worked. It worked as great motivation for City because pretty much as soon as that happened, they were like, "Oh fuck, we probably should turn it up and show up to this match." They scored 3 goals in the next 6 minutes, so it definitely flipped the switch for the whole City team.
Yeah, and fair play for people that went for the Haaland triple captain, including yourself. And I'm surprised you haven't mentioned it yet. To be honest, that was a great call.
I can't do so much gloating on one podcast, Dan. I mean, my Chelsea Blues, they hung 6 goals. I had noise complaints coming from my neighbors. I was yelling so loud.
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, this was a pretty obvious choice for a triple captain, really. I'm looking at it now and I'm like, why didn't I play it? Especially when I was very for it on the podcast last week. I guess I was holding out on the off chance there's a double game week or 2 sets of fixtures later on in the season that I can play it in. But then if you really think about it, we have this mystery trip, which I assume is a chip that can be played in a double game week. We're also likely to have less double game weeks this season because of the way the Premier League have set their fixtures up. Therefore, playing a triple captain in a single game week is much more viable this season, and who better to have than a fully fit Haaland at home to Ipswich? So it was a great call. I love the decision. I'm glad you went through it.
Yeah, I wanted to go for it. I feel like it was a spicy move to go for it this early in the season. But I have to give credit to my wife. She is not an FPL player herself, but she puts up with me watching a lot of the games and all the extended highlights. So, and also doing some late night or early morning tinkering, which she is less a fan of. Let's just say that. And she just said, you know, if this was game week 22, if this was game week 32, of course you triple captain Haaland. I mean, Haaland does goals. He's going against the weak team at home. She's like, why are you even worrying about this? Just triple captain him and deal with it in game week 22 or 32 when you don't have that chip. I was like, babe, you know what? You're right. And I and I just went to sleep. And then I didn't stress about it. I was sleeping great thanks to my kids actually staying in bed past 6 a.m. And I was having sweet dreams of greatness because I knew that worst case scenario, Haaland was going to get at least a goal and an assist, probably more. And he got more. And he's the best goal scorer in Premier League history to my eye. And it's not that close.
Like I said, it was a great call. So well done to your wife. I wish my wife told me the same thing, but she did not. So
yeah, she was. You were too busy enjoying your engagement dinner leftovers, right? Congrats on that front, my brother.
Thank you.
Also in this game, who stood up, KDB really shined. He had a goal, an assist, and 2 bonus points. Whenever that guy gets a damn attacking return, it's like inject the bonus points right into his veins. He's that kind of player. He ends up on 12 points. Savio, I think he's the one that we really have to put the microscope on. 9 points here. He had 2 assists, and it seems like that right wing spot is his to lose, and he's priced at 6.5 million. He is the one who kind of got away from the preseason commentary because if he is in fact nailed on that right wing, he could have a 170, 180 point season ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a classic case of people ignoring him because of the Man City rotation. I certainly never once even slightly considered him. And to be honest, I'm still not considering him. And he's likely to get haul after haul after haul, and I'm just going to keep ignoring him because of the rotation that's likely to happen very soon. I mean, they have Grealish fit. I assume Foden is coming back very soon. He was not in the squad, but when he is back, he could push Savio out the team. So yeah, I love him. If you go there, go for it, have fun, but understand the risk. He could be dropped out at any point.
Yeah, but he might be the clear best 6.5 million option at this point in the season. I think with City's attack, even the chance that he's nailed, he's a better option than Noni. I'm not too braggadocious about my Chelsea Blues to not admit that. I think Savio is a really good player. He will have a couple goals, but he has Haaland to just tap the ball to over and over again. It's almost too easy.
Yeah, it really depends on what kind of manager you are. If you're someone that loves X minutes, you go with someone like Morgan Gibbs White. That's what the majority of analytical managers go with, players like that. Or if you're kind of a Bucks wide player like you, then you're going to go for Savio and try and chase those hauls, understanding that you might get a 1 pointer or a 0 pointer every now and again.
Yeah, that's the two polar opposite ways of playing FPL. Ain't that the truth? Let's go to Spurs. They beat up on the Evertonians 4-0. Son has a major haul, 16 points. He gets 2 goals, a clean sheet, and 3 bonus points. One of those goals, I think my 5-year-old daughter could have scored, as Pickford just played him directly in on goal. That was almost like playing on easy mode against the grandparents who don't know how to hold an Xbox controller. It was that level of easy, right?
It was. It was. I'm furious about this game though, Bucks. Really furious because I picked Solanke from game week 1 and swerved Trent because I had Solanke. Really because I thought that Spurs could smash the Toffees in this
go
game.
off, Wolf. Come on.
I was expecting a 4-5-0 this game. That's why I picked the number 9 star striker in my team. And then, of course, we hear 2 days before the game he's injured, and then I have to watch them smash 4 goals, Son to get 16 points, and Solanke to rot on my bench while Trent Alexander-Arnold continues to punish me every time Liverpool play. So that I thought that was really unlucky because I really feel like Solanke could have got a hat trick this game.
Yeah, Everton were just asking to be gotten at. I mean, Romero had a haul. He had a goal, clean sheet, and 3 bonus points from the 5 million defender. Pedro Porro gets his clean sheet. Finally, Spurs keep a clean sheet. And VDV even got in on the attacking option. He got an assist. So great win from Spurs. I think we will have to speak further about Everton. I predicted they were one of the teams that are at risk to go down, and I thought they would. This is even worse than I thought it would be. It is so bad. They have dropped the opening 2 matches 7-0 combined score. I don't know where the goals are going to come from, and I don't know how they're going to keep clean sheets because their defense is just riddled with injuries and suspensions. It's scary days if you are a blue in Liverpool right now.
Yeah, they've really turned to shit. They were looking good at the end of last season, and this season they're just a totally different team, likely due to the injuries, like you said. But I think they've really become a team to target, especially away from home. At Goodison Park, I still think they're a decent team and can shut teams out, although we saw last week, not necessarily. But away from home...
I don't know. I kind of disagree. They're getting ready to open that new stadium, and they might be opening it in the championship, which would just... That would be killer for Everton as a club, actually, because their ownership situation is in disarray. Their finances are in disarray. They're one of the teams that have never left the Premier League since it became the Premier League, the first division. And they might get relegated, and then they might be in a situation where they're like Sunderland, and they're just kind of like have the cement blocks tied to their legs as they get dropped in whatever oceans are nearby to Liverpool. I'm not that good at geography, as evidenced last episode.
Yeah, you're not good at pronunciation. You're not good at geography. What are you good at, Books? Other than
I'm decent enough at FPL, and I'm a handsome wild devil. That's why you guys keep me around.
True.
Let's go.
That's true.
Let's go to Liverpool. The other team in the city was feasting on the bees and the honey that they brought and didn't put out. Slot gets a win in his home opener. That's 2 in a row, both 2-0. Pretty impressive so far from the Slot man. And Luis Diaz was the one who really starred in this game. It was Salah last game. Diaz gets a goal, assist, and 3 bonus points. Huge 14 points if you went there at 7.5 million. The other 7.5 million option is Jota, who's leading the line. He gets just an assist. A little hard done, I think. I know I'm a Jota owner. I think you are too, Dan.
I am, yes.
He is just passing the eye test to such a high degree. But to only get 1 return again feels Like we're getting cheated here.
Yeah, I mean, he's delivered consistent points the first two game weeks, but he really could have had two double digits just like Salah. He had that overhead kick that I can't remember who it was who tried to head it. It was Robertson who had a clear header on goal and he hit it right at the keeper. But that could have easily been two assists, which probably would have got him a bonus point, and then he's on double digits. The good thing is, slot clearly favours Luis Diaz, Mohamed Salah, and Diogo Jota up front. And I think those three work really well together. Darwin is kind of all over the place. He's kind of erratic, which is fun to watch. But for the controlled play and the passing that Liverpool are doing under slot, these three just are really clicking. So I'm not worried about Jota going forward. I know he comes off around the 67, 70-minute mark. However, by that point, he's already had 20 shots on goal. So I'm not too concerned about that.
I definitely thought he would be an issue in my team come game week 3 when I initially made my draft. And I'm so fortunate. And I feel like managers are very fortunate. He's just fitting in so perfectly, and he's clearly fit, and he's clearly first choice. At 7.5 million, he is such a bargain. And if you were wildcarding game week 4, I would be Jota curious. I think I would even consider going there again after the international break. It feels like he's made that position his own.
I agree. Let's move on to Arsenal.
Yeah,
Arsenal
tidy
versus
business. Tidy once again.
I mean, I had Gabriel in my team this week, and I had no concerns playing him, even though they were away from home. They're just such an elite defense. They won comfortably against Aston Villa, I feel, although Ollie Watkins had a couple of chances there that he really should have buried. So that could have easily been a 2-2 game. The thing about this game is David Raya once again came away with 10 points. He got bonus points. And he's looking like, with the bonus points changes, he's probably the best option from the Arsenal defense right now, especially because it allows you to go with the more attacking defenders on other teams elsewhere. I don't know how you feel about that.
Totally agree. He's 0.5 cheaper than Gabriel and Saliba, and a whole million cheaper than Ben White. I think he's almost the game breaker, and he's the player I'm actually fearing most the last 2 game weeks. I look at my livefpl.net rank, and he's a major threat because he's owned by a quarter of the game. And so far, he has clean sheets. He's getting save points and bonus points. So he's hauling. And of course, Dean Henderson, one of the more popular 4.5 million options, might stink and can't save a ball if it saved his mum. So it's a disaster.
Yeah, David Raya has come away with 4 bonus points from the first 2 games. We saw last season that if Arsenal keep a clean sheet, none of the bonus points go to David Raya unless he has like a worldie of a game. But now he's comfortably getting the bonus points, whereas people like Saliba are no longer getting them. So I do like going with him, and then it gives you the opportunity to go with the likes of Pedro Porro and Trent Alexander-Arnold, or Rico Lewis / Gvardiol in defense on the other premium teams. So I really don't mind this option. I was heavily against it at the start of the season. We always tend to go for the 4.5 million keeper, but I've changed my mind completely.
Yeah, I think on wildcard, that 25% number might approach like 40 or 50%. He's just that much better than the rest of the crowd for clean sheets and for FPL purposes, because he plays for the best defense. They control a lot, and he is actually being asked to make a couple saves this season. So he's either going to be, it seems like, on 8 or 9 points or on 3 or 4 points. And for 1 million more, it seems worth it if you can find the enablers, which we are rich with enablers this season. That is definitely something to be talked about further on in the season.
Speaking of enablers, Matty Cash got injured this game with what looks like an injury that's going to keep him out for a month. And his backup is a 4.0 million right back. I don't know if you want to try pronouncing his name, Bucks, because I'm going to butcher it just as much as you would.
I'm going to call him Indeli, because Indelkovic or something like that. Something like that.
Yep. Indelkovic, let's go with that. He's 4.0.
Yeah, that's not it. I guarantee that's not it.
Yeah. He's 4.0, and according to Aston Villa fans, he's probably likely to keep that right back spot while Cash is out. So if you're looking for an enabler to target those amazing Aston Villa fixtures coming up, he's a very good shout.
Yeah, but the enabler that's really, I think, catching the eye from Villa is Morgan Rogers.
Yes,
5 million
absolutely.
is too cheap. He's playing second striker. He's played 90 minutes both matches. So Ollie Watkins is coming off for John Duran, who's also catching the eye, if I say so myself as a Chelsea fan. But Morgan Rogers, I think he is a potential game breaker. He will be in something like 30% of teams. Definitely most of the engaged managers will have him on wildcard. He's just too good for the value. And Aston Villa look like they're going to be one of the best teams in the league once again.
Yeah, I picked him from game week 1, and I'm looking forward to catching all of those price rises.
Yeah,
and then
you cheeky devil.
I know. The final game we have is the Manchester United versus Brighton game. So the thing about that came out of that game for me was João Pedro getting that very, very last minute goal to set him up on 8 points when he's quite highly owned in FPL. And also the fact that he was even on the field at that point, because that means he's played both games now for 90 minutes and he's 5.5 million. And Brighton have an amazing set of fixtures coming up. So I really like the João Pedro shout if you're going to play a wildcard very soon.
Really, this makes for great content because I actually like the other 5.6 million striker now, which is Danny Welbeck. I think we are seeing a major career resurgence for Danny playing against one of his old teams in Manchester United. Of course he scores. I said that in the chat beforehand. I almost guaranteed that he scored. And they win 2-1. So both budget enabling forwards get returns in this match. And just a brilliant start for Hoitzler and this Brighton team. They're just doing it in the transfer market. They're doing it on the pitch. Really impressive start to the season. On the flip side, speaking of bees, there's Bruno. And he's bad Bruno right now. He's not bad Bunny. He's bad Bruno. Because he has wasted cumulative 2.18 XG so far this season. He's missed 3 huge chances. And it's just a disaster for the analytics community who really backed him in a big way, that he is just not delivering the returns because he's getting in the right positions. That's for sure.
Yeah, he was the analytical favorite to start the season. And you can see why, to be honest, because he's delivering the numbers. But, you know, he's not getting the returns to match. And it's really unfortunate for the people that went there, I feel. And I just guarantee that at some point in the next couple of games, he's going to be mass sold. And then he's going to come away with a 15-pointer. It's just what Bruno does.
Yeah, he'll get an 18-pointer. I totally agree.
Before we move on, I do just want to quickly touch on the Welbeck versus João Pedro thing again. For me, the thing that swings it in João Pedro's favour is that he's on penalties. So that's why I prefer him. I do see your point about Welbeck, but you know, I'm showing my slightly analytical side here. I prefer the Pedro pick because of that penalty.
Yeah, but I think Welbeck he tends to be closer to goal is the reason I like it more. And I think Brighton, with the wing players that they have in Minte and Mitoma, I think that center forward is going to be getting lots and lots of chances. So Welbeck is jumping off the screen when I watch those Brighton games. And let's just round out this segment, touching on 3 more players who had double-digit hauls. Morgan Gibbs-White with 11 points. He had a goal, clean sheet, and 3 bonus points to fuel Forest to a win over Southampton. Gibbs-White promised he would do better for FPL managers. This is a really good start from him, getting that double-digit return. Then we had Smith Rowe, 10 points, goal, 3 bonus points. Fulham beat Leicester 2-1. Last but not least, Tony Gloves Gordon gets 10 points, a goal, and 3 bonus in a 1-1 draw. We will not talk about the refereeing. I promised that I wouldn't, but this was a miscarriage of justice if you are Cherry supporters. Let's leave it at that.
For multiple reasons, for sure. But yeah, there are teams out there with all 3 of these assets in them. Morgan Gibbs-White, ESR, and Gordon, along with Salah. So those guys are just cruising right now, the people that went there. Fair play to you.
Yeah, let's touch on that, because I think there was a lot of controversy in the community going into the opening game week, going for 1 premium, going 2 MEM, going maybe bucks wild with 3 MEM. And a lot of the content creators were slagging an approach going with more than 1. And I think what we've seen through the first 2 game weeks is actually the managers who were bold and went with 3 MEM, specifically if you have Son, Salah, and Haaland. But even if you have Son, Saka, and Haaland, if you have Haaland, Palmer, and Saka, I mean, if you have any combination of those 3 of those 4 big swinging dicks in your team, you are well positioned in the FPL ranking so far, and you're living the dream because you're going to be catching price rises, I think, for all five of those players.
I mean, it goes to show that FPL got the prices right because all of the expensive premium assets are all delivering so far. So, for the people that went 2 or 3, again, fair play to you. I went for the Haaland and Saka, and it's done me pretty well. My issue has been my average players like Eze and Isaac have been underperforming.
Ain't that the truth? All right,
It is.
let's pause here. When we come back, we'll dive into the action coming in Game Week 3. And we're back. Let's dive in and press fast forward. So we skip this week of doldrums and everyday life, and we will go into Game Week 3 knowing what has happened in the Premier League transfer window. We will have a settled sense of all 20 teams, but I think we know a little bit already, and so we can predict the best fixtures to target for FPL hauls. Dan, who is in the match in Game Week 3 that you think is going to get the most unbalanced of scores?
I have a feeling that people that went for Mbumo this week are going to be very happy with a double-digit haul from him. I think Brentford at home to Southampton after the loss they just had, I think they're going to 3 or 4-0 victory there.
The G-Tech is no joke. I agree with you. I think this is 3-1 to the Bees. I think Southampton, they haven't been total shit. Let's just say
no, they
that.
haven't. They haven't.
They've been the most impressive of the newly promoted teams to the eye test, but the competition has not been too tough because Ipswich and Leicester are not doing themselves any favors, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, to give the benefit of a doubt to Ipswich, they've played Liverpool and Man City, so it's hard to judge them right now. The real game this week is going to be Ipswich hosting Fulham. Now, I know a lot of people have Fulham assets in their team. A lot of people have 2 assets or even 3 because they've seen those initial Ipswich games and thought, oh, there's haul potential here, but we might possibly see an upset here. I'm one of the people actually with 2 of their assets, so I'm a little nervous about this game, to be honest.
I think this is 2-1 to the home side, and I'm hoping it's Muniz who finally comes good with the goal. I think Ipswich will be plucky, and for Ipswich supporters, the season really starts now has been one of the lines that they are preaching, to not get too high or too low on performances. Starting now is when they have a stretch of run of good green fixtures. They need to be getting some points here. So Fulham is the first real test, and it's in front of the home supporters. So I think Ipswich can pull it off.
I think so too. I think we're going to see goals this game, so we'll see how that goes. And then the final game for hauls, in my opinion, is Aston Villa facing Leicester. I think Aston Villa are going to want to bounce back from that loss to Arsenal. So for people that have even triple Aston Villa in this game, I think they're likely to be very happy. I'm going to see a 4-1 maybe in this game. I think Ollie Watkins is going to come good. I have a feeling about him.
I was going to say, I am not making transfers, so I'm stuck on 0 Villa assets. And this match is going to be a hide behind the couch kind of setup because I think Ollie Watkins could easily have a brace. And I actually think that it could be a clean sheet and Rodgers gets a return also. I think all the players will have a good chance of getting a return. And we should note that Leicester's best defender, Wout Faes, is requested an exit from the club. He is not impressed with what has gone on since they won the championship, and he wants to leave. So if their best defender leaves, it'll be a barren cupboard with just Jamie Vardy leading the line and really no one else of note on this whole fucking team. Yeah. So I think that could be really scary days if you are a Fox fan. I think 3-0 pretty comfortably to the Villains.
Yeah. How long were you practicing that pronunciation of Wout Faes? Be honest.
I still butchered it, but he was in the Euros, so I got to hear a number of different commentators struggle with it. Not just me, who struggles with some of these names from abroad. I'm just a typical American in that regard, aren't I?
Yes, but there are people that actually went from Barco, who left on loan to Sevilla, directly to Faes at Leicester, and now he might leave too. It just goes to show that that transfer of a 4 million to a 4 million is just not worth it. You might as well just let the 4 million player rot on your bench.
Totally, totally agreed. Let's go to the best matches in real life. I think this is another pretty exciting game week. We have Brighton at Arsenal to start it off. I think this is going to be a real test for Arsenal. Brighton have been pressed. I think this is 2-1 to the home side, but it's a very close 2-1 kind of feel.
I think this is going to be close. I think Arsenal will pull it off. But Brighton have shown that they're a really good team this season. They can score goals. So I think this might be the game we see Arsenal concede.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength there. Do you think this is a potential match where you would be fussed about bringing in a player like João Pedro, who shouted out earlier, or Minte? If you have him, you start him, right?
I probably would. If I have them, I would start them. And I was toying with the idea of bringing in a Brighton asset ready for their really nice run of fixtures. But if you already have them, you might as well start them this game. I think this Brighton team, the way they are playing, they can score against anyone.
I agree. I think I wouldn't be scared off by the Arsenal defensive performances thus far. If you have the Brighton guys, you got to ride them because they're doing the points. And for FPL, even one mistake, one opening is a chance to get a differential haul. And I think João Pedro could have his moment in the spotlight in this match. You think 2-1 also? I didn't hear the score.
Yes, I'm going to say 2-1 to Arsenal.
Okay. Keeping it in the interesting column, Spurs at Newcastle. I have to say, Newcastle have been one of the duds of the early season. I have a double up on them. Thank God I don't have a triple up. Alexander Isak, consensus game breaker in the preseason.
Yeah.
He's looking more likely to have you break your TV by throwing the something at it because he has not looked very impressive. Just an assist, and it was a gifted assist at that. So Spurs at St. James Park. You think Newcastle are going to get it done, or Spurs going to stay hot?
I think we're going to see goals in this game, but I think Newcastle are going to turn it around. I'm actually going to make a bold prediction here and say Newcastle are going to win 2 or 3-1. And I think this is the game where Isak comes good. You know,
okay.
Isak was touted as essential in preseason. I think even we might have used that word at some point, but it just goes to show that he's not essential. No player is essential in this game.
I will eat humble pie here. I definitely said he was essential. He was the first name in my team sheet. And of the hundreds of drafts that I made, because I am a true sicko, I don't think I had a single one without Isak in as, one of my de facto forwards. So the fact that he has really just put one stinker after another has been really frustrating. But I think this could be a come good match as well. I think it's going to have goals. I think this could be like 3-2, maybe even 4-3. I'm going to give a slight edge actually to Spurs, but I think there's going to be so many goals in this game. This has all the makings of the match of the game week for me.
I think so. And yeah, I know Isak has had a poor couple of games. However, people that brought him in game week 1, we were kind of looking at that first 5 game weeks for him. So he still has 3 of those left. If he gets a goal in each of the next 3 games, then he was a good choice.
Well, it depends. We'll see how many goals Ollie Watkins pushes past these boxes. That is kind of the AI and the analytics favorite transfer move by the predictions is if you have spare change or if you've rolled transfers to go Isak to Watkins to target the amazing fixtures that Villa have, whereas Newcastle have decent fixtures. Let's leave it at that. Last but not least, Liverpool at Old Trafford to play against one of their favorite teams, Manchester United. I'm just going to go first. 4-0 to Liverpool.
Oh, I was actually going to say 3-0. I think Man United are shit. We need to stop praising them. I mean, not that many people are praising them, but I'm seeing some people saying they're still a top 6 team, they're still a top 4 team. They're just not anymore. They're just awful. I think Liverpool can destroy them here.
I'm shocked what is going on with that team because they have pretty decent players on paper, but this new ownership came in kind of promising the moon. And they're like Boeing right now in their space program. They can't even get off the launch pad because it's so weird that they haven't added a midfielder or really they need a winger. Ahmad is not good enough to start most matches. He's a good young player, but he should not be starting for a club like Manchester United. I think that's shambolic. And they've frozen out Sancho, who's arguably their best attacking asset. So just really weird times if you are a Manchester United fan, to say the least.
I mean, I'm going to piss off a lot of Manchester United fans here
Do
because I
it,
know we
do
have
it.
multiple of them that listen to this podcast. But, you know, for how long are we going to keep hearing this? This is not Man United. This is not a Man United team. This is not a Man United performance. Like, those days are long gone. I'm sorry to say it. Those days are long gone. I think we need to accept now that Manchester United are fighting to be a top 6 team these days. That doesn't mean they don't have good FPL assets, because you can pick a good FPL asset from any of the 20 teams. But, you know, we need to stop thinking we're just this huge club that can get any player they want at any point. They're just not that team anymore. If this team loses Bruno Fernandes, they're screwed.
Absolutely. And I actually think that we should speak a little further on Marcus Rashford. I think the guy is he did some great charity work in his time during COVID, especially. And you know what? The performance on the pitch just deserves to be called out, because the guy is just so busy hanging his head, and he has the yips. He doesn't like to shoot because he's afraid he's going to miss and then get slagged in the paper. I mean, that pass to Garnacho, no way that 17-goal season Rashford passes that ball. He takes that shot there. So it's just a team that is really low on confidence. It's low on spirit. And yeah, outside of Bruno, I mean, this team is kind of FPL irrelevant, I think, which is incredible to say.
I mean, they're average at best, especially if you lose Bruno Fernandes. I can easily pick 6 teams who are better than them, especially if they lose Bruno Fernandes. So yeah.
We're in the same boat. I think they'll finish maybe 8th or 9th range this season. And I think that's become their level, unfortunately.
I think so. I think you need to put them in the same bracket now as the likes of Brighton, you know, West Ham, those kind of teams. I don't see them in the same bracket as Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal. There's nowhere near these clubs.
I agree. And you could argue that West Ham and Brighton currently are better run clubs, and you wouldn't have to really make such a strong case. It's just plainly obvious in front of all of our eyes.
Yeah. Well, we've just lost about 1,000 subscribers.
Oh no.
Good job, Bucks.
Well, we do love Manchester United supporters. They are the most active club in the FPL game for sure. The fans really show out and show up. So we will at least end our negative shit sandwich with some compliments. Let's go to the top 3 captaincy options. This is just our personal point of view. This has nothing to do with stats or analytics or projections. This is just vibes. So Dan, you got your clear top 3. I got my clear top 3.
I do. I have a clear top 3, and then I have like a rogue shout.
Yeah, then
so
you
my
have
clear
6 or 7 extra ones that you're going to throw in.
Yeah, my clear top 3 are Haaland. I still think he's the best captaincy option this week. Away to West Ham, he's just proven what an elite asset he is. I think Salah away to Manchester United is second. Then I think it's close for the 3rd spot, but I would probably give it to an Aston Villa player, and I think I'm leaning Ollie Watkins, because I do think that this is the game he turns it around and gets a couple of goals to get his confidence back up. I think he'll get more minutes for that reason. But I do like the outside shout of Mbeumo. I have a really weird feeling he's going to get double-digit haul this week.
Wow, I love that. Evil Brian. We're missing good Brian, so you're leaning into Evil Brian. I really
Maybe
like
that's what it is. Maybe I just miss Brian.
Yeah, I think that might be it. We miss you, Brian. Come back to the pod whenever you're ready, baby. My top 3 is Haaland. Then I have Trent. I know I bait and switched you with the list that I made over here, but I have Haaland, Trent 2nd, Salah 3rd. I think Trent has been inches away from a mega haul these first 2 games, and Liverpool look really well drilled and structurally sound in midfield and defense so far. So I've been impressed with the slot start. And I think Trent is going to get 13 points in this match. So I think that is captainable, to say the least.
I sure hope.
Why do I keep saying to say the least? To say the most. Trent is going to score 13 points. Let's go. Most.
There we go.
All right. Let's take our final break. When we come back, we will tell you what we are doing with our teams going to Game Week 3 after we answer some community questions.
And we are back, and it's time for community questions, Books. Are you ready to answer them?
Mailbag. Let's go. I'm ready.
Okay, so first up we have Nihal at FPL Masala. He asks, if we get news that Solanke is still injured before the international break, is he a sell?
Yes. Yes. You have to sell because the 2-week international break will absolutely crush his value and your team value. And the reality is 7.5 million, it's an easy swap to a cheaper option, setting you up for a move of a player, should you not have Salah, to Salah in game week 4, where I think that's almost an essential move. You go maybe Saka to Salah with the savings you get from Solanke to João Pedro or Armstrong.
Yeah, I'm holding him for this week, but if he misses this week and then has to play Arsenal next, then he's a sell for me. I would downgrade him and use his funds to upgrade a midfielder. So yeah, I think he's probably a sell for me anyway, to be honest, regardless of if he's fit. But I am keeping him this week because I think there's higher upside moves.
I agree with you. I think, but if he is the biggest problem in your team, he's a sell. And I think Isak, we're giving him 1 or 2 more game weeks, so he's not completely off the firing line. But Solanke being injured, 7.5 million can go a long way redistributed within your team. And I think early season, you really want to be chasing returns. So just benching one of your premium guys just doesn't feel right.
I agree. Next up is my Cayman fan Matt. He asks, which team has impressed you most over the opening 2 games and have assets that need more investment? What do you think?
I think the easier question is the opposite. Which teams have impressed us the least? Because right now, it's looking like there are a couple of trap assets. Eze, he's looked brilliant. His team has looked far from brilliant, to say the least. So Crystal Palace, I'm a little concerned about what's going on there. From the teams that are really impressing, I think obviously Man City, obviously Arsenal, and obviously Liverpool. And I just think that the Liverpool run to start the season, it was staring us right in the face, but it might be impossible to ignore going for a triple up on those guys. So I've been really impressed with how Slot has started the season. I probably said that 4 or 5 times already this episode. He's proving every test. And, Maresca, he's having a little bit of a honeymoon spell. He had 1 bad, now 1 good game. Slot has just come in. It's not too far off the Klopp system. So it just seems like a very pragmatic hire. And Liverpool are impressing. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question from Matt, but hopefully I'm giving you enough meat on the bone here.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, though. I don't think there's been any surprises, really, in terms of who's impressed the most. It's been the clear top 3 best teams in the league have been the clear top 3 best performers in the first 2 game weeks. I think it's more surprising the likes of Newcastle and Crystal Palace not delivering, to your points. So yeah, that's a difficult one to answer. I will say I think Tottenham have looked very good. I think they're going to have a very good season, at least in terms of goal scoring. But yeah, in terms of investment, I think for the people that went for the best players at the best team are the ones that are getting all the points right now. It seems obvious, but we don't think that way at the start of the season.
Let's give credit to Brighton. It pains me to admit this as a Chelsea fan, and we are basically Brighton 2.0 because we took their coach, we took their whole coaching staff, then we took their sporting directors, but they seem to have the magic sauce.
Yeah, you're right.
On Amex. So I'm really impressed. Seaside is going great. There's cool ocean breeze coming off the coast there. And the seagulls are clucking. They are barking. They're whatever noise they make. They're doing it to a very loud effect. And their new coach seems like he is a good one. And the investment they have made in that club seems to be checking every single box. So Minte, been very impressive. João Pedro starting healthy. That's a good sign. And Matoma, Welbeck, just seems like they are not stepping wrong so far this season. And with another couple days in the transfer window, they could make another splash or 2 to strengthen that side.
I agree with you, and I did them a bit of a disservice. I think outside of the top 3 obvious ones, Brighton are the best performers and the ones that are surprising us the most. So I agree with you, especially with their really great fixture run coming up. They would be the team that I would target right now.
Yeah, so let's just double click here on Matt's question because I'm seeing a lot of chatter about early wildcards. And I know game week 4 was something that was discussed pretty heavily within the community. But now a lot of managers are just smashing the button and going with a game week 3 wildcard, saying it's not altogether too different than game week 4. And maybe with free transfers, you can get the same team for game week 6. The issue is Brighton, you probably want to have at least 2 of their assets on your wildcard draft. And they play Arsenal away in game week 3. So I think that alone is enough to push me off the game week 3 strategy. What say you, Dan?
Yeah, I'm actually really not a fan of people that play their wildcard out of panic. I mean, it did cross my mind early this week because I was so pissed, but I never would have actually done it. And I think even people that are going for wildcard 4, I think you kind of had to commit to that at game week 1. I'm going to go for a game week 4. I know people like Connor FPL Hunt. He said right at the very game week 1, I'm going to wildcard 4. So he picked players for game week 1 that he knew he would get rid of on a wildcard. I think people that are playing it just because are going to end up suffering a little bit. If you didn't plan to wildcard 4 at the start of the season, I much prefer the swing that happens around game week 5, game week 6, and I would hold it until then. That's at least what I think.
Yeah, I think more information is better. And the opportune time is to do it going into an international break. So game week 3 is before, and you'll be using your wild card trying to catch price rises and avoid price falls all this week before the transfer window closes. And then it closes, game week 3 happens, and then game week 4 happens, and there will be a whole series of even more price rises, price falls, injuries that you'll have to deal with. And yes, the banking free transfers aspect of this season changes the strategy, but I kind of feel like it's just too early. There's still so much unknown of how the season is going to shake out that I would much rather even take a hit
I agree.
in game week 3 than use the wild card, which is such a powerful chip.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have 2 more questions. Next up is Paz. He asks, should I start Robinson, Ipswich away, or should I start Pedro Porro, Newcastle away? I have this same dilemma, and I am personally benching Pedro Porro. I don't feel great about it, but I just feel like Fulham have the better chance of a clean sheet than Tottenham do.
I think neither team keeps a clean sheet, and you pick Pedro Porro for the attacking return. So you just back it that he is the higher upside player. And yeah, I don't think that's such a complicated play. Dan, I know you're dreaming of the clean sheet, but I just think it's so obvious that in this new format, a little more extra time, 5 subs, there are less clean sheets. There's just, if you're not Arsenal, you're not likely to get one.
So basically, Paz, you have to choose whether you like Bucks more or you like me more, because we're not going to agree on this one.
We will hold it against you for all of eternity based on how your lineup looks at the deadline. Ain't that right, Black Wolf?
It is. I think I don't think either team will keep a clean sheet, but I think it's more likely that Fulham will. And I actually think Robinson has been looking great going forward. He got an assist last game. He could easily get an assist against Ipswich. But yeah, this is going to be a very swingy decision. Like, both choices are great. Go with your gut. I think that's the stereotypical answer, I know, but
it's easy for me to make the call, right? Because I have neither. So it's like I'm so far from those decisions. But I understand where you're coming from. Having both those guys, kind of a situation where you'd ideally like to start both, but there aren't enough slots in our team. So I just think you go for the better attacking player at that point. And Pedro Porro, I said in game week 1, I repeat what I say, but I think he's basically a winger who can get clean sheet points, kind of like Trent. If he has to do defending, Spurs are in a bad place.
Fair enough. Okay, then our final question is from Graham Atwell. He asks, who is the best 4 million and 4.5 million defender? Not many to choose from here.
Is Robinson still 4.5, or he went up?
He went up.
Wow.
So yeah,
I think it's Rico Lewis. He's my guy. I'm Rico Suave on this podcast going forward. He was a bandwagon that I feel like I helped start, and he just looks brilliant. I can't see him getting dropped. I mean, Kyle Walker isn't featuring getting any minutes for City in either of these two matches. Makes me feel like he's likely out the door. And Rico Lewis is inverting. He's getting forward. He was in front of Haaland at points in that Ipswich match. So I think he's my favorite 4.5 million defender. 4 million defender, it probably has to be Ben Johnson, but I feel gross about all of them. And I think you don't really want to start any of them.
Okay, so my answers. So I agree on Rico Lewis. However, I think by the time this podcast is released, because we are currently recording this on Monday night, I think Rico Lewis will go to 4.6. So he might not be an option by the time people listen to this. If that's the case, I would pick Lewis Dunk as the best 4.5 million option. I think Brighton have a great run of fixtures. I think they have high clean sheet potential, and I think he's their most nailed defender. So Lewis Dunk is my favourite. In terms of the 4 million defenders, it's the guy we mentioned earlier for Aston Villa, and I'm not going to try and say, Angeli, whatever his name is. I think he's the clear best option at 4.0 right now.
Do you think he definitely starts? Because I know I was reading that on the timeline. I mean, the fixtures are incredible for Villa over the next four. I think they play Leicester, then they play Ipswich, and then they play Wolves, something like that. Is that correct?
Yes. I don't know for sure if he starts. I think I would have to trust the in the know accounts and the fans whether he's going to start there. However, if you have any doubt that he's not going to start the game, you just leave him on your bench. He's only 4.0 million. But I think in terms of the high upside,
why doesn't Konza just play there? He was playing there all of last season.
Well, this guy apparently played there all preseason at right back, and Konza's been at centre back. So I think because he plays so well in preseason, I think that's what people think he's going to do going forward. And he's been coming on as a sub both games. But I trust the accounts that I follow on Twitter who are Aston Villa fans, and they seem to think he's going to get the start. So I would go for it.
Interesting. I think this guy has all the potential to be like KY in jelly because, he's what you need. He gets you hot to trot, but, sometimes it starts burning a little bit. And that might happen if this guy gets benched in game week 3. Everyone flocks to him, and everyone flocks away from him in game week 4. And then you're just stuck with this Indeli asshole on your bench.
I mean, I guess that's the one downside is you're losing an Aston Villa spot if you do pick him. Because you might want to go with the more nailed Konza, you might want to go with Rodgers, you might want to go with Watkins or Bailey, and you're losing an Aston Villa slot. So that is the downside. However, who else are you going to pick at 4.0 million? I guess you've got Harwood Bellis.
That's true.
He's nailed, but he plays for Southampton.
It's definitely a potential. He has that Dubravka aura from last season, where him and Kelleher both came in. I think they were both 4 million, and they both became starters out of nowhere. And we're able to get a lot of points for managers who pounced early. I'm just not sure that he's the first choice now, I guess. But I'm not a Villa in the know account by any stretch of the imagination.
Who knows?
I'm surprised that Konza wasn't your first choice at 4.5 million. Because I feel like those fixtures they're delicious.
Yeah, it's close for me between Konza and Dunk. I think I just prefer Dunk for his attacking return potential. I know he's only got 2 goals, whatever it is, in the past couple of seasons, but he's always good for a bullet header once in a while.
Hey, we can say he has potential, and potential means that even when it goes unrealized, it's still there in the ethos. Let's leave the community questions in the dust. Thank you to all of our listeners and followers who got involved in our social media handles and DMs with those great questions. The show is fueled by engagement from you all, and we really do this for fun and for the joy of the community. So thank you again for contributing. Let's close out with our plans for game week 3. Dan, you already said you made a transfer. So start us out here. What was the move for FPL Black Bull?
Yeah, so I did the big no-no, and I did an early transfer to catch price rises. I swapped Nkunku for Emil Smith-Rowe because Nkunku was dropping to 6.4. Smith-Rowe rose to 6.6, so I wanted to catch that 0.2 million swing. And Smith-Rowe has
5.6. You banked 1 point.
5.6.
Yeah, I like that.
Correct. So I banked $1 million. So I now have Smith-Rowe in my team who plays Ipswich. Again, I think that's a good fixture for him, and I think he's a great enabler going forward. and I have 1 million in the bank, which gives me some room to play with transfers next week, because I am actually eyeing up a potential hit next week. I hate that I'm eyeing up a hit already when my plan was to roll all the way to game week 4, but I'm definitely eyeing it up.
Are you at all considering going Isak to Watkins this game week? You have the funds.
No, it would be for a hit for me. I'm not considering it. I think Isak versus at home to Tottenham is a great fixture for him, and I think he's going to come good. I don't want to knee-jerk him out. I want to give him time.
Okay, I like that answer. I agree with where you're at. I think the move you made is pragmatic. It's upside chasing. I think taking a hit, we'll have to see on next episode what that's looking like before I give my feedback.
I think you would like my hit. We can talk about it next episode, but I think you would approve.
All right, we're true professionals, leaving a little teaser here. Who's your captain going to be, Dan?
Erling Haaland, no doubt.
Leaves no doubt to the listeners.
No doubt.
You left that Humpty Dumpty era in the rearview mirror, which I really respect. You are full on off the fence this season.
Exactly.
All right, I guess that leaves me before we get the fuck out of here. I'm going to roll my free transfer. This is so unlike me. I feel like my team, it's not optimal, but there's no glaring issues at this point in time. My watch list has 5 players on it, exactly 5 players. Morgan Rogers, Ollie Watkins, Savio, Noni Madueke, and Mo Salah. So I will be figuring out a strategy to get at least one of those guys in off that list in game week 4. But I feel like banking the transfer here is a good move for my team. Coming off the successful triple captain of Erling Haaland, I'm going to keep the faith, give him the armband once again. And I think he's going to score not 17, but 14 points in game week 3.
Yeah, I'm looking at your team now. I think it's an easy roll for you. You've got no issues. You might as well save the transfer so you can play around with it next week.
Yeah, and I think going into game week 4, it will be important to have maybe 2 transfers because a lot of players will be looking that have Saka, maybe trying to move off him to someone like Palmer or to Son or even to Salah. And you'll need the extra transfer to enable a move of that nature. So maybe Dan is thinking just like a move of that swingy nature, but we'll have to wait till next episode to learn that for real. I think this has been a great pod, Dan. Why don't you tell the listeners where they can find us and our podcast and get us the hell out of here. I need to go eat dinner.
Absolutely. You can find us at FPL USA Press Play on all of the social media platforms. You can find me at FPL_Blackwolf, and you can find Books at FPL USA Books. And we appreciate everyone listening. And if you would like to subscribe to us, that would be very, very awesome. We're trying to grow this season, and we're having a great time.
It's been joy of a season to start. It's been a little rocky in the rank department, but it's been really fun on this podcast. And I thought you were doing underscore as a shout out to where you're at in the rankings of the 3 podcast co-hosts, because your score is a little under both Brian and I's right now.
The only rank that matters is game week 38. You were over 100 points ahead of me last season, and I caught up.
Yeah,
so I'm not worried.
You did. You're bearing the lead a little bit because I also used all of my chips. So you had 100 points in the negative, but also 3 chips, and you ended up catching me, as did many other managers, to my dismay. I think this has been a great pod. I'm going to keep smiling. Chelsea 6-2 over the Dan Pups of Wolverhampton. And this has been a great podcast. Thank you. Hashtag FPL USA. We are at FPL USA Press Play. Dan, love you, man.
Love you too.